Alright, so remember that book video that I was going to do like 3 months ago? Here it is. Right on time. What is up, guys? It's been a minute, obviously, because of all the, channel stuff. Aside from shorts, I haven't really done anything as of late, and it's been pretty good, I'm taking a little snooze, and it's been good. I'm getting real lazy. A little too lazy. I have actually gotten into a bit of a reading slump. I want to get back on that track, and I'm hoping that doing this video, which I wanted to do, if you've been following the channel, I've done one a year for the last 2 years or so, where I go over all the books that I read the previous year. And this past year, I should say, I knocked it out of the park because I was expecting, my goal was to read 6 books like I did the year before that. Basically one every 2 months because I'm a pretty slow reader. I actually read 10, plus a couple others, which we'll get to. I just kept turning through, and I was really proud of that. And I'm really excited to talk about them. But because there's 10 of them, plus a little extra, and I would talk way too much, we should just get right into it. Now, for those of you who haven't seen me do any of these types of videos before in the last couple years, I'm not superbly well versed in the world of books, like modern recent books right now. Like, this isn't like a TikTok thing, like a book talk thing. I usually do like a mix of old books from my childhood that I never got to read or didn't get around to, and then old classics, and then maybe something new, kind of switch it up a little bit. Okay, so starting off with my one DNF, the did not finish book. Last year I went to Disney with my family. We went for the first time in years and years and years, and I thought it would be really cool while I was there to read Kingdom Keepers, because I had gotten the first two when I was younger. I know there's a whole series, but I had gotten them and I never got to read them. So I thought it'd be really cool, even if it was, a little bit geared more towards kids. We're going to Disney, it's for kids. Like, I'm here for it. And so I started reading it. And I got, I think, 50 pages in. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, I could have stopped earlier. I don't like tearing other writers down for their writing style. There's some where I'm like, the story's good, it's just not my type of style, stuff like that. Guys, this is not well written. This feels, even though it's for kids, I get it. This feels like it was written by a 10-year-old. This is the type of writing that I read it and feel like this is the type of writing I wrote when I was 10 years old. It's just so full of stereotypes. Like, from what I remember, because it was, basically a year ago at this point that I was reading this, there's like the black kid, and he's the tall, athletic one. Just the plot was not that interesting, even though it should be. The concept's really cool. It was mostly just the writing, though. It just feels like it's written by a middle schooler for middle schoolers, and it's got every cliche in the book. It's just not... It wasn't that interesting to me. And I think had it been written better, there was probably more of a potential for it, and I probably would have stuck with it a little longer. But as it is, it was just... I can't say anything more than it just feels like it was written by like a 10-year-old, and I hate that. I really wanted to like this, but it's just... It's really cringy too. There's a lot of references and pop culture stuff that is in here from when it was made in 2009. That sounds about right. So when I read some of the things, I was like, oh, that's taking me back in ways I don't want to go. If you like Disney, try it maybe, but I'm not gonna lie, the writing's pretty bad. I'm sorry. So on to the first book that I read this year, or I should say that I finished for the year, because I started it in the end of 2024, finished it beginning of 2025, and I think in my last video I had actually mentioned that I was finishing a book. I didn't want to talk about it yet, and that is Tunnels, which is, I remember seeing this book, and I think getting this exact copy when I was younger and thinking, God, this looks so cool. Like, my favorite color is green, so that was right off the bat, was like, this looks cool as hell. I really liked the cover. I liked the concept, the fact that it was going to be like digging tunnels and finding cities and things like that. Seems so freaking cool. And it was also a book that I swear was way more popular than people are leading on now, because I feel like nobody's heard of this. Like, I talk about it and no one knows what I'm talking about, which is weird because I thought it was really popular. I really like the concept. Again, just digging tunnels and finding underground cities. I thought that was just so freaking cool. And the way that the city isn't even just like a normal city. It's like, it feels like it's underground. It's dark. It's got street lamps, caves with street lamps. You've got these, I think it was, I can't remember, again, this was like a year ago, but it's these, I think the sticks, I think it's the sticks, yeah. The way that, they were described as being these kind of, having this dark light, to kind of hypnotize you was really cool. I liked all of the stuff before we kind of knew what was going on with, I think there was like, the people, they were blue. I can't remember if everybody's blue, but there were blue people. I think those were the sticks. And the mystery of that, and like the dad who's like this giant museum nerd, and he knows something's going on, and he's digging his own tunnels and everything. That was all very, very, very cool. I also do appreciate, even though when I started reading this as a kid, and that's why I had to stop and come back to it, I remember trying to read this and being like it was really daunting, because it's a little dense, honestly, because it's very vocab heavy. It's like, okay, I understand that the authors did their research and they know how digging is done, the process, the vocab, all the tools, everything. And so it's a lot, right in the beginning, especially if you're a kid, to be like, okay, I gotta get the picture and like, what's this tool and what's that tool, and it was kind of complicated. But I did like a lot of this. There were two things that I was not a huge fan of at all. One is most of the characters. That's a really big thing. Specifically the main character. His entire family sucks in one way or another. Mostly him. Because he's fine later on in the book when a lot of the actual city stuff is happening. But that's because he's kind of just our filter to see what the city's like and what's going on in the plot. But before that, when it's more about his character, he is, I don't know, like he's bullied for being a nerd, but then at the same time, he's got one friend who he sort of bosses around and is kind of a dick to, and I get this sense that he's like, whether it was intentional or not, that he's really egotistical about the fact that he has like all this authority over how to do this stuff, like he knows what he's doing, and I didn't like that. I didn't like his personality. So, later on he gets a little bit better. That's because he gets a little bit more generic because we're focusing more on the world. The other thing is that this is basically split up into 3 parts, and the third part gets really, really boring for me, honestly. It's very repetitive. It's a lot of back and forth through stretches of cave that just not much is going on. There's a little bit. There's obviously things hunting them, which is cool, but it's like a solid 150 pages of just them going back and forth, and it seemed to get kind of redundant. It was a little bit boring, so wasn't a huge fan of that. It kind of felt like a slog to get through by the end. But there was a lot in here that I did like. It definitely feels very set-up-y for a series because there's a lot of things that aren't really resolved. It kind of doesn't feel like it's its own thing and then it could add on. It definitely feels like there's a lot of loose threads that you have to keep reading, and I don't particularly feel like reading more of it, at least right now, so we'll see. But it is definitely a really cool concept. If this is ever one that you saw as a kid, if you actually remember it, let me know in the comments below. But if you saw this as a kid and you were like, I wanted to read that, never got to, give it a chance, see what you think. It's a cool concept in and of itself. I really like the atmosphere of the book. The next ones that I'm just going to talk about them all at once, that I am continuing on, is the series of unfortunate events. Evidently, it seems that I'm just going to read 3 a year and probably be done in the next 2 years or so, because there's about 13 of them. I like to split stuff up, and I'm in the mood for different things, so I am probably not finishing all 13 in just one year, because then I'd probably just be reading all of these. I will say that my thoughts are basically the same as they were in the last video, so you can check out my thoughts on series of unfortunate events in that other one. So I won't go as in-depth right now, just because there's not a whole ton of new stuff. But once again, writing style that Lemony Snicket has is very unique, I always love that. I still love the humor that like even adults can understand, and sometimes only adults can really understand. Not that they're like adult jokes, but just things that your experiences. It's a lot funnier for adults than kids. What was it? So we have the Miserable Mill, the Austere Academy, the Ersatz Elevator, and they're still sort of following the same formula. It's starting to get a little bit more into some deeper plot than just the regular formula of Count Olaf gets a new disguise, and then he comes and he tries to find them, and then they are put under his thumb for a bit, and then they outwit him, and then yada yada yada. But now we have a little bit of a difference because we've got two things. We've got the Quagmire triplets. If you've read them, there's two of them, but there was really three. One of them, passed away. Not in the series. Doesn't get that dark yet. We have that, and then I think it's what was it? Is it VD? Yeah, VFD, which now we're starting to get into some more of the actual mystery of what's going on here. So I'm really excited to see what all that's about. Of course, I only own like half the series myself, and they're like not in order. It's like 1, 2, 3, like 5, 7, 12, and 13. Like why? I don't know. So I've been borrowing them from friends as well. They are a nice break between like more like older books or more serious or more dense books. They're a nice little quick break to just go back to these three kids who are very entertaining, very clever, very funny. I really do like reading about them, and as much as the Count Olaf stuff could get a little too stupid, and also like just Mr. Poe being maybe the worst character in the entire world, it's a great time. On to what is the only new book that I actually read from last year, and of course I was gonna read it as soon as it came out. Sunrise on the Reaping. The Hunger Games is a series that I am shocked I consistently speed through. Like at this point in my life when I'm just tired all the time and like for some reason I just have terrible reading slumps, I am constantly speeding through these books as soon as they come out, especially with the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes being like 1.5 times longer than normal. And this one's back to its regular like 350, 350 page book. I will say right off the bat, I think this might be my favorite arena. And that is just because of the visual explosion that I had in my head reading this book and reading the description of the arena. Now, it is rivaled, of course, by the Quarter Quell clock arena. That one is probably still the most clever, but I love the look of this one. And I will get to my thoughts on like what it's going to compare with, the movie in a second. But I will say, I really love that. That is absolutely my favorite part of this book. I do also like a lot that like the Quell. I think this is the first Quell. I think the first Quarter Quell. That it's the double the amount of tribute, so that makes it that much more interesting. That's really cool. I like a lot of the little things that we get in here, just more details like world building. And I guess I'll say what I don't love about it because that kind of ties into it. It kind of feels like it's starting to get, I don't want to say redundant, but because it's a prequel where we know more of what had been happening, like the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, that was so early on that there was a lot of new stuff, and there was a lot of stuff because it's President Snow. We didn't get to see a whole lot of his backstory. There was a lot of new things, the Covey, that being introduced and all that stuff. Covey? I don't know. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Sorry to one of my friends, Blair. She's going to murder me for saying it wrong. In this one, there's a lot of stuff from that and from the original trilogy that we've already seen. So I kind of feel like there's still a lot of really cool stuff. And there's a lot of cool, like, we get to see this character from the original trilogy, but younger. We get to see how they sort of get their start, which is really cool. But it definitely feels a little redundant. I'm not quite sure. I think in terms of main characters, I think Haymitch, for me at least, is the far and away the least interesting. I like him, but maybe I'm getting tainted by the main character that we're gonna get, like the actor from the movie. I like how sort of Haymitch is developing into things, even small things like saying "sweetheart" about stuff. Why he probably has such a fondness for Katniss, getting into his drinking, all of that. There's still like really great stuff there, and there's a lot of really great stuff in terms of his like relationships with other characters and who he's looking out for and protecting. That all is really good. Then like I don't know, we get like his love interest Lenore Dove and more of the Covey stuff, and it just kind of feels like more of the same. And if the Kobe was such a big thing, why is it not mentioned then in the original trilogy? This is why prequels are kind of a problem sometimes, because you come up with things that then don't. Why aren't they in the, later on in the future? Why aren't they mentioned at all? Maybe she'll, talk about that. Maybe there'll be another one. I think there's going to be an FE one. Maybe somehow that'll be like, oh, the Kobe left. They're gone. We got rid of them. But I will say the games were very, very cool. I don't know. It felt to me like the way that a lot of the tributes died, and the when they did, how they did. A lot of them are graphic as hell. They're very shocking. But the order and when and why kind of felt a little bit random to me. And again, it's been about a year since I've read it, so maybe I'm just forgetting some things, but I do like a lot of the little moments here. I really like Maisie. Her relationship with Haymitch. It's just, there's a lot of really cool stuff in here. And the reason I said that the world building kind of connects with this is that I was talking to a friend who pointed out that, this one seems to be less of, what's going to shock us and what are we going to find out, and more so like we're world building. This is in between the beginning and the original trilogy and all that, so we kind of know what's going on. So seeing it in that light, I do get it a little bit more. I can see how it's more of seeing a little bit more in depth into a lot of the processes and why things are the way that they are. And I mean, I will say, having more of a look inside the arena, like the mechanics of the arena and then the volcano and everything, that was very, very cool. So yeah, I'm very excited for this movie. Just brief thoughts. I love the 70s vibe that they're going for. I think that's a really cool idea. Like if the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was more of like a World War I or II sort of vibe, this is more of the 70s, which I think is very cool. Casting as ever is so on point. It's ridiculous. Except for Haymitch. I don't know. I'm not buying him. He just doesn't feel like Haymitch, did anybody else catch this? He talks really fucking weird in the trailer. I don't know. Is that just me?
From what I've seen, they're 100% stupid as usual.
My other thing, too, is the arena, while it looks very colorful, doesn't look nearly as sickeningly colorful as I thought it was going to. And I'm hoping that that's just a trailer thing and that the real movie's going to have, some final touches to it. So we'll see. But overall, another very worthy addition. For me, I think Sunrise on the Reaping out of the 5 is probably at 4, but that mostly just says talks about how good the others are, because I still liked this one a lot. The next one I picked up, I wanted to get another Vonnegut, and I was looking for, I don't even remember which one I was actually looking for, but I couldn't find it, so I ended up picking up Slapstick, or Lonesome No More, and this one's going to be real brief. It wasn't my favorite. I, again, really like Vonnegut's style of writing. It's very matter-of-fact, very sarcastic, and that's really cool. I think Slaughterhouse-5 had a lot more going for it, for me personally, in terms of the sci-fi element and also the back and forth and how there's kind of connected with the war and everything. I thought that was really cool. This one, I just wasn't really getting. Again, from what I even remember of it, it's about these two codependent, basically, siblings who are very, very almost Alabama kind of siblings. No, not almost. I think they are. It's an odd one. It's just so weird, and the thing is, when it's weird in a way I don't like, where it's just kind of gross. And when it's not weird, I'm a little bored. I was a little bored. It's just kind of going through their lives, and I don't know. I don't really even remember that much about it. I just remember being like, okay, it's an easy read. I'm not super intrigued by most of it. There's some cool little scenes. I think there was a scene where I think it was somebody had created a machine that the main character could talk to his sister or his mother, somebody who had passed away, in the afterlife. I think I'm remembering that correctly. That sounds ridiculous, but I think I'm remembering that correctly. If it wasn't the Vonnegut style of writing, I wouldn't have liked this at all. If you're a Vonnegut fan and you've gone through all the other ones, maybe check it out. But for me, it just, Slaughterhouse, way better. Next up, I read Animal Farm. I went back to a classic I've been trying to get to for a while. There's been a couple books that I've been like trying to get to here and there, but every time I go to the library or anything, it's just never available. And Animal Farm is finally available. So I grabbed it, and I knew, like a quick read, a nice, quick, intense-ass read. One of my friends, I think, kind of described this as a really good beginner book on getting into all these isms, like, for kids to understand, or, even teenagers to understand what a lot of these things are, like, dictatorships, totalitarianism, Stalinism, all that kind of stuff. I'll be totally candid with you. I am horrible on the isms. I often mix some of them up or get them confused. All I know is that 95% of isms are bad, and there's like 3%, 5% isms that are pretty good. I really like the way that this is written. I've been saying that for a lot of these books, but there's just a lot of different cool writing styles here. But I like how this is written by George Orwell, because everything that happens for about 90% of the book is written very casually, very like, oh, okay, this is cool, this is fine, because it's from the animal's perspective who don't know what's happening. So while everything seems nice and light for the beginning, which is fine, even when it gets into stuff like the rules changing and like some animals, or all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, it's just written in such a way, and the reactions from the animals are in such a way that it seems very lighthearted and, okay, cool, that's fine. But underneath it, it's like, ooh, this is creepy, this is not gonna end well. And I really liked that, like that what it feels like on the surface versus below the surface. And the final page and what that image is again, genuinely, it's just creepy. It's a very interesting ending. I liked it a lot, and obviously, there's a reason this is a classic. My video's not going to say anything new about it. I'm probably just gonna butcher it. I just thought that the way that this was handled was, again, for kind of an introduction into a lot of these topics. I don't even want to. I can't say that George Orwell is ahead of his time. It was this book is about his time, but it is also unfortunately very timeless, and that is why it still works today. Again, sad, but it works today. Just the way that it is slowly developed throughout the story. Like all the attention to detail on the animals and their roles. Each animal, each character has kind of a different role, a different reaction to what's going on. Some of them are totally fine going along with it. Some of them are going along with it because they're scared to not go along with it, even if they start to realize things are bad. Some of them are like completely not desensitized, like they're like, I've been through this shit before, I'm so old, I don't even care at this point. And the rest are just like blindly, they don't even realize anything wrong's happening for a bit, and then when they finally do, it's too late. Like, it was just really cool to see all their different takes, because we see that in everybody today, even in our world, in this country alone, about how people are reacting to things, how they take things, what their response is. So if you don't know, Animal Farm's a pretty good book. It's a classic. Yeah, I really enjoyed reading it. Next one I picked up was Wildwood. And again, the library. I actually want to have this book. It looks so freaking cool. I really love the art on the style, on the front of the book. But the reason I actually picked up Wildwood was not just because it seemed like a really cool fantasy that I wanted to read. Leica is actually coming out with a Wildwood movie, and I think it's next year. I don't think it's this year. I think it's next year. And I love Leica. I love stop motion. So I'm really excited for that, but I wanted to obviously read the book beforehand. What I didn't expect is that I thought this was like a straight fantasy. Like, it was like you go deep in the woods and there's magical creatures and it's going to be a little dark and very whimsical. That's what I was kind of expecting, And it's sort of that, but not exactly. It's a little bit more like, kind of like Narnia, but even then it's not as like deep magic and things like that. It's like Narnia if it was more about the government. So if any of you have, read this, like any of these books, if any of you have read this, comment below and, let me know if the takes that I have and everything are accurate or same to what you feel. I liked it. I liked Wildwood a lot. I do think that it, for me, kind of oddly enough, suffers in two kind of contradicting elements. One is that there's a lot of government stuff, and not a ton. It's not Dune, right? For kids, it's a lot more political than I was expecting. It's not a ton of politics, but it's just a little bit more of like royalty and battle strategy and war and all that kind of stuff in in here, and it's cool. It's just not what I was expecting. The other thing is, I think it is a little bit kiddish in some elements, where I think it could be. It honestly could have stood to be a little bit darker, I think. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Even as I'm saying it, I'm like, it's a kid's book, But just from what I was seeing, I really did like a lot of what was in here. I liked the main characters a lot, specifically Prue. Curtis is cool, but I really like Prue a lot. I like her kind of just, she's just gonna do what she's gonna do. She's not taking any shit. She is just gonna march right in there, and she's gonna save her brother who was taken by crows. Like, it starts out pretty wild, but I like a lot of I was constantly referring to the map in the back of the book, because there's a lot of different lands that are covered here, and I was actually impressed how well all of them are. I mean, it's like 500 pages, but how much they're all given attention and fleshed out. And there's 2 more books. There's like Underneath Wildwood, Beneath Wildwood, something like that. But again, kind of like the tunnels, I think I'm good for now. Maybe I'll go back to it later. But I liked how a lot of it was set up. I liked, there's different, there's like the aviary section, with the owls and eagles and stuff like that. There's like in the north, there's a south, there's like a whole big city. There's kind of I think there's like the tree with I think it was mystics, and they're kind of like, well, you can approach them, but we're gonna see what happens. It might not go the way you think. And then there's the bandits, obviously. So there was a lot of really, really cool elements geographically here. And then speaking of geography, the one thing I very much remember about this author, whose name is escaping me at the moment, and of course I don't own the book, so I'll have to put it in here. This guy, or woman, this person just has the most authority on vocab that has to do with the outside. Every color of tree, every type of bush, every category of grass, everything, like even like down to names of how hills are connected and river banks, and like it was crazy. Like there will be whole sections, whole paragraphs that are just describing the land, and that should have been really boring to me. But it was, I mean, after a while it's like, all right, I get it. It's grass. For how much there is, it was, it kept my attention, and it was painted very beautifully too. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in this book. There were some elements that I wish we stuck with more than others, but I do like a lot of the imagery, especially that's from this book. So if you're into Leica, especially if you're into fantasy, adventure, all that kind of stuff, this is a really good one to pick up as well, especially if it's like something you want to read to your kids. It's a really good kind of, this is like a book where the word tale applies. This is a good tale, And hey, we're back to books that I actually own now. I bought Something Wicked This Way Comes because I knew I was going to like this. You know how I knew I was going to like this? The premise of this is that there is a dark circus, kind of. Yeah, basically a circus. It's a pandemonium, that kind of crazy types of shows that comes to town in October during the night. There is a night circus. And if you remember from last year, the Night Circus was my favorite book that I had read of 2024. And this one takes place at Halloween. So I was like, if it could get better, this was going to be it. Now, of course, this was written way before the Night Circus. And what I like about it, well, as a lot of things, I do like that it has that kind of, not older language, but the older writing, the way that the characters talk to each other. One of them says, holy cow, little things like that. What I like about this, I'm going to say in comparison to the Night Circus, is that the Night Circus did like every idea you could ever think of. This one has other things that weren't focused on as much. Whereas the Night Circus kind of has like 1,000 different tents, and it's like little ideas here and there. This has like 3 or 4 main parts of the circus, of the festival, I'll say, and it really focuses on those and the evils of those. And where the Night Circus is whimsical for whimsical's sake, or honestly more for love's sake, this one is there purely for dark and evil. The main character, or the main villain's name is oh yes, Mr. Dark. If that does not paint a picture of who this guy's gonna be, I don't know what does. But it was so cool. If you like the Night Circus, you're probably gonna like this, because it has a little bit of like a more Halloween dark feel to it, because there's like characters like witches, and I think there's like a dwarf or a short man. And there's all these really cool takes on the type of wild acts you would see in these, circuses. Circi. What was really cool about it was, looking into these, the different things that they kind of focus on is they got the mirrors, they got like a hallway of mirrors, or a maze of mirrors. They've got a hot air balloon, and then, and obviously the carousel, which, funny enough, the carousel, the merry-go-round, takes, if you go backwards, it, makes you younger. If you go forwards, it makes you older. And 2 years ago, I read The Thief Lord, which I think kind of stole that, now that I'm reading this. So, funny enough, it is theft. Good job, Thief Lord. You're thieving. I think the thing I like about this the most, though, and I know you're not going to believe this, it's the writing style. The fact that this is an older book and has that kind of older writing style isn't just like, oh, haha, they talk kind of funny, like, well, that was swell, Jim. It's not just that. It's like the purple prose, which I love. I love Great Gatsby and F. Scott Fitzgerald, and all that. And when I read Fahrenheit 451, I didn't get a whole lot of like flowery language. So I didn't know that Ray Bradbury was cool like that. Just the way that he describes things in this book is, once again, I love purple prose because the way you describe things, it doesn't logically make sense, but it brings a deeper meaning and understanding that you wouldn't get otherwise if you just said straight logical things. God, I love writing. But the way that he describes certain things, like whole paragraph, like honestly this entire book, every sentence I'd have to be like, whoa, oh. Like there's so many things that I didn't understand what he was talking about at first, and I would sit with it and be like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like it's kind of like when I was in high school reading like Canterbury Tales, when that was like the Old English, they would say, just kind of read it aloud and like don't try to focus on one word at a time. Like read the whole paragraph and you'll kind of get it. That was kind of the same thing here. Like I loved the abstract stuff, like a mirror, a cold mirror showing reflection of you in like the future, like your most harrowing fears and of aging. He describes mirrors as having surfaces of winter. I could pick literally any sentence in this book, and it would just probably be the coolest freaking thing. It would be beautiful in a very haunting, creepy way, which, what else is Halloween about, So, if you're looking for a classic, Something Wicked This Way Comes is so freaking cool, and it's one that I definitely want to go back to and read again, now that I know exactly what's going on, so I can really just, like, soak in the writing of it, because it's just so beautifully done. And before I get to my final book that I read for the year, I do want to mention that I have actually started with Audible. Audible is, I'm just kidding, this is not sponsored in any way by Audible. This is not sponsored at all. But I started with Audible to see, because I had never done audiobooks before. And I was curious if it was something that, would help me, get through, more books that I wanted to read. Funny enough, I think the first book that I actually listened to all the way through was a book about imposter syndrome. I'm sitting here in my car listening to an audiobook thinking, is this really reading, while I'm listening to a book about imposter syndrome? So that tells you all you need to know about that. What I have found, and I don't know if there's other people like me, if it is something I've already read, it's fine. If it's something that I haven't read, I can only really do nonfiction. At least while I'm driving. Maybe if I'm just sitting there listening to it, it's better, but my mind starts to wander after like a minute. And it's not because I'm bored, it's because it's getting me thinking about other things and writing and reading. And then I'm like, oh crap, I missed something, and I have to constantly go back. So I did this imposter syndrome one to kind of feel it out. That was a nonfiction one, it was fine. Because it's kind of like listening to a podcast. Then I did The Hobbit, and even then, there were things I was missing. Now, it didn't matter to me because I had already read it, but there would be whole sections that I was like, I forgot to listen to the thing I'm paying for. So it's very interesting. Is anybody else like that? Let me know. I started with Alice in, I guess this is technically a DNF or a DNL, did not listen. I started with Alice in Wonderland with Scarlett Johansson narrating, and it's really good, but I have this one issue where I think I missed something. So for me, she's still on the side of the door where she's like trying to get through the door in the beginning, but there's been like chapter after chapter where she has to be through the door at this point. So in my mind, for like 4 chapters, she's still on this side of the door, and there's all this stuff going on, and I'm gonna be honest, I just got frustrated with myself, and I think I stopped listening because of that. So I'm gonna try to go back to that. But now I have like 7 or 8 credits, so I'm gonna go back and pick out some good ones and try to see what I can do, because I know audiobooks are good for, listening when you don't have time to actually sit down and read, and you can do other stuff. But when I'm doing other stuff, I get distracted, I'm not paying attention. So I don't know what to do. So what are some tips that you guys have if you have the same problem as me with doing audiobooks? The last book that I read, and technically I did read it, I wasn't really thinking about it this way because it's not really like a fiction it's kind of nonfiction, but it's not really a fiction book. And it's not just a straight sit down and read it through. It's kind of like a textbook, and that is The Artist's Way. But I was thinking about it, I did read pretty much the whole thing. If you don't know what The Artist's Way is, if you've never heard of it, it's basically a book, kind of a workbook, I guess, that a lot of people use to get back into being creative about something. Doesn't matter what it is, writing, dance, art, anything creative. It doesn't even have to be art, anything. One of my friends who was pregnant at the time asked if I wanted to partake in this, because she had already done it once, and she wanted to do it again. It's a 3-month, it's a kind of an over 3 months period. I was like, yeah, because I had been trying to get back into a flow for writing and certain things and reading and all that kind of stuff. But what's really cool about this is that you do not have to be a creative person. You do not have to have, you do not have to have creative pursuits. You don't have to be like trying to do something in a creative field. What's cool about this is they very, very much emphasize everybody is creative. Everybody has something creative in them. And there's a lot of really good, I'm not going to say tips in here. It's not like just giving you tips, but it's things to practice to unlock that. Oh God, I sound like I'm in a cult. Unlock that creativity, because it's in us. It's how to look at life in a way that you can be more creative and you can have that in your life more, and ways to, opportunities to look for that, not waiting for the perfect moment. Even things like discipline, right? I always thought I need discipline. I need a writing routine that's very structured. And they were actually like, discipline is a little selfish. Not even selfish. It's making you think more about the doing it, like the I have to do it this way, rather than just being free to do it, And it's really cool. I know, it sounds kind of hippie-ish. I promise it's not. The other thing, too, is that there is a slight religious aspect to it, but it's not like any one religion, right? It brings it in, because that is a very big part of creativity and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. But it's not like it's solely focused and set in religious values or purposes or anything like that. So there's kind of something for everybody in here, So if you have anything that you're like trying to pursue at all, whether it's your work or not, or just a hobby, something you want to try, goals I would try this out. I will say there's 2 elements to it, one of which I loved and one of which I hated. And it seems to be that every person who does this, who goes through this, is one or the other. There are 2 things that you do consistently. every week and every day. There's the artist dates, which I absolutely loved. It's basically excuses to try something new, do something new, creatively, go somewhere, see something, but you have to do it by yourself. I loved that. Then there's the morning pages. I fucking hated the morning pages. It should be cool. I like writing. I should be able to just write 3 pages in the morning, just spouting off whatever, and be done with it every morning, right? It's not hard. So why was it so hard? I hated it so much. Because they're like, just free write. Don't think about it. Don't try to write anything perfect. Just write whatever. But whatever came to my mind was mostly like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. And it was like every day. So I'm curious, if any of you have done this, were you more of an artist dates person or a morning pages person? It really encourages you to continue the morning pages after you're done. I did not fucking do that. There's my journal's still sitting there. I'm curious to look back, after a year and see what else I wrote. But no. But this was really cool though, because it gets you thinking about a lot of stuff that you want just out of life. Just like, what do you want to do? What do you want to see? What do you want to do? Do you want to be a part of musical theater as an adult? You can. Just do it. There's a lot of really cool perspectives in here, and not everything. I mean, it's one person's perspective, so not everything is perfect, but it's pretty close. The reason that they wrote this book was because they had a class that they did on it, and the class was so popular that she made it into a book, so people could just have it and follow along with it. So this is really cool. The other thing I will say, the one last thing, there is one week that's particularly painful. It's a week without technology. As much as you can, if you have it for work, but that was rough. I felt so bad. I watched half of Groundhog Day and felt like I had cheated. It was really weird, but it is pretty rewarding, I will say. Yeah, it was a good reading year. If I had to pick which one was my favorite, honestly, I don't think I can say that there was a standout one from last year that I had picked one over the other, but I think I would probably go with Something Wicked This Way Comes. There was a lot of really good ones, but that one I think was just the coolest in terms of its concept, its writing, the overall story, the relationships, all that was really cool. So that one I will probably say is my favorite. So having The Night Circus and then Something Wicked This Way Comes back to back is pretty poetic, I think. But if you guys stuck through this entire thing, thank you. I'm just glad to put something on the channel for right now. And I also am going to be doing another video very soon, maybe around about this length. And it's going to be just kind of recapping the movies that I saw for the first third of the year, because I promised that even if I wasn't doing all reviews or anything like that, I would do 3 times a year. I'm going to do a video talking about all the movies that I saw in that third of the year. So look out for that, and comment below books that you read last year, your favorite ones. What do you think of the ones that I had, and what are your feelings on them? I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk about books some more soon.